Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Film, the series where I talk to a variety of different people about their love of film and what sparked it in the first place. And today I am joined by writer Josh Barton. Sorry, I'm in a mess already, and the intro's gone. But Josh, why don't you introduce yourself for everyone listening?
I'm a writer. I have been since, pardon me, since I left uni, writing on my own blog. I've been doing it since 2012, 2013,
Hmm.
with gaps in between and not doing it as much, but recently picked up a lot more and found myself uh, writing about films a lot more than I ever thought I actually would. So, yeah.
Because you write for some publications, but you also have your own website where you write most of your stuff, don't you?
Yeah. So obviously started with my own blog, but over the last 4 or 5 years, been writing for Film Hounds.
Mm.
I did start writing for Jump Cut before they Jump Cut Online before they obviously had to stop as a site, and
Mm.
then Cinematique and various other places. But they're the three main ones I've written for. Yeah.
Yeah, no, is it, do you, this is a separate question just because I'm intrigued. We'll get more into like your process of writing a little bit later on, but I'm just intrigued. Kate, is your style of writing different to like a publication as it is to how you write on your blog, or do you kind of have a general writing style that applies?
More or less a general writing style, I guess, because most of the time it's reviews that I write.
Mm,
So when I started my own site, it was just reviews. It was a few previews, but then I thought it was getting too much. I was
yeah,
trying to write three reviews and like three previews a week of what was
yeah,
coming out the next week and then what was coming out this week, and it got a bit much. So
mm,
it's more for me, it's all about like personal style. I know obviously there's been a few things recently where people can't seem to
yeah,
introduce a review with a personal anecdote or saying, I don't mind that. I
yeah,
bring that into my writing if I can. But I found with
mm,
say for instance, Film Hounds,
yeah,
um, I've written a review, but most of the times I've written for them, it's the like the lists best 10
yeah,
best
yeah,
Pixar films, 10 best
yeah,
westerns. It's writing about a particular film, and
mm,
what I find different with that and having to change my style is the fact that yes, it can be personal, but also because it's limiting yourself to a word count,
mm,
quite a different challenge to me. Whereas with my own site, it's like just write as much as you can. Whether people read it is another question altogether. But with writing for
mm,
Film Hounds, I found it's changed my view on writing in a sense that I need to be a
mm,
bit more strict with what I write sometimes. I think the last one I
mm.
wrote was write something in 250 words,
Oh,
which
blimey.
yeah, was quite a
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah. But I got
I,
there. I got there.
I mean, I find 1,000 words a bit of a stretch anyway, because I have a tendency to kind of sum up everything I need within like the first 5 to 600, and then there's like another 400 left, and I'm like, God, where do I go from here? Whereas like I can't imagine even trying to condense anything to like 250.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what with reviews, I kind of find myself in a ballpark between if it's something I like, I'll
Mm,
probably ramble on a bit more.
yeah.
I'll probably find myself between 500 to 750, 800 words. I've
Mm,
hit 1,000 a few times, but sometimes it's just like I don't know if people will want to read this, and that's when I feel
mm,
if I want to hit that 1,000 mark, I feel like I maybe need to bring more personal
mm,
stuff into it. See if it's a
yeah.
film that affects me personally, kind of thing,
Mm.
because people might want to read that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree because I think that's the beauty with writing for somewhere like your own personal blog or even the Cinematique because we just kind of we just write the review however we want and then we just it goes up. And there isn't really a set amount. You just write it and however many words it takes to kind of convey what you need to about the film, and then you just go with the flow. So the first question I want to ask is the one that I just start off generally is what is the most recent film that you've seen that you absolutely loved? It can be an old release, it can be a new release. Just what is the first thing that comes to mind?
I've got a few for this year, and the main one is my
Mm,
film of the year so far, which is probably a lot of people's film of the year so far, is June Part Two.
yep.
Um, yeah, you know the same group as I do, and
Yeah.
a lot of people love it. So yeah, probably a common answer, but it is
Mm.
what it is.
I've spoken to a couple of people about this already, on this series and separately, just in normal conversations. But like, film's been pretty good this year, but I've yet to see anything that's quite topped Dune. Because that kind of might have set the the bar a little bit too high this year. And even though there have been really good films, like stuff has come very close. Dune is it's going to take something monumental to push that off the top.
Yeah, had that the other week with Furiosa, which
Mm,
was the upcoming film that I was like, okay, Fury Road, I loved. It's one of my
mm,
favorites of all time, and I just thought I went into that probably the mistake of thinking it was going to be exactly the same and just another sort of
mm,
2 hour long car chase sequence, which
yeah.
it wasn't. And I
Mm,
appreciate it for what it was, but I kind of just felt a sense of underwhelmment when it finished. It's still a very
mm,
good film,
mm,
but I wanted it to sort of be a challenge to June Part Two, which
yeah.
it just wasn't for me. I'm glad to see a lot of people got more out of it and loved it more than I did,
Mm,
but yeah, I just feel like there hasn't been anything that's topped that. There's been films that have come close. Like I said, I've
mm,
got a few other ones, and another one that came close was Challengers because that was just
mm,
that. By the end of that film, I was like nearly on off my seat, screaming
mm.
like I don't know. People don't do that at tennis. I know people don't get up and scream. You just sit still and be silent, but I
Yeah.
felt like, yeah, I need to get up and just applaud this because it was that good.
Yeah, I finally watched Challenges last weekend, I think, and in the back of my head, there was a lot of me thinking, like, is this going to be one of those like really overhyped films that I'm just not going to click with? And then it finished, and I'm like, yeah, I get
Yeah,
it. Like, I might not love it as much as some people, but like, I get it.
yeah,
I
no,
get it.
definitely.
You just can't fault that film. Like, it is shot perfectly. The performances are all great. The score, I need that score on vinyl. I do.
Yeah, as soon as it
Uh,
releases, it's one of those things you just put on
mm,
Spotify on loop kind of thing, and
yeah.
then don't even play tennis to it. You just jam to it when doing anything, cooking food,
Mm, yeah.
exercising. Yeah, it works
It's
for everything.
just
The point,
immediately like amps up whatever the activity is you're doing.
yeah, I was gonna say because playing tennis in that final scene and how
Mm,
sweaty they're getting, you can get that sweaty in the kitchen. Trust me. And with that music going, yeah. But just that film when in that final scene when that shot with the racket and the ball, when it's
mm,
like you realize what's happening, it's just
mm.
yes, it's so good.
Yeah, I think it surprised me even more because like I've not, I'm going to be brutally honest. Luca Guadagnino is like he's a bit of a blind spot for me. I've seen a few of his main films, but like there's a lot of stuff of his I've not seen. But out of the stuff I have seen, I love Call Me by Your Name, but Bones and All, like the more I think, the more time that passes, the less I feel like revisiting that film, or just like it hasn't really stuck with me, which is why I was a bit concerned going into Challenges. Like I just don't want another Bones and All, and then
Mhm.
thankfully, each of his films so far have been very different from the
Yeah,
last one.
I feel like Challengers might will probably be one that you can have more rewatch value.
Mm,
I know there's people out there that will watch films over and over and say you see something different each time, but I really believe Challengers is one of those films that
mm,
you'll pick up on something different with each viewing. And I
yeah.
did like Bones and All,
Mm,
and I remember seeing a LFF, and I
mm,
don't think I've seen it since. And it's one of those things that I would be interested to go back and watch it, maybe watch
yeah.
it with my wife because she didn't see it and see what her take on it is, but also see if it holds up as much as I thought in the first place,
Mm,
which is always an interesting thing because seeing it at a festival
mm,
and you know what it's like, you walk out and people straight away are either best thing I've ever seen or best of the festival or worst thing I've
yeah.
ever seen. And you just need a bit of time to process it, take yourself away, write a review, and then go back on it maybe in a few months, few years and see what it's like. But I haven't
Yeah.
had the chance to do that yet.
Yeah, no, I totally. I vaguely remember because 2022 LFF was the first year I did his press, and I remember Stu saying that someone threw up in the press screening for that film.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember that, but I remember an elderly couple, 2 rows in front of us, got up literally 5 minutes in,
Oh wow.
which obviously they saw the
Yeah.
finger bite scene and thought, no, this ain't for me. Considering it was like middle of the day as well, you can kind of understand that because I think some
Mm,
people probably saw it before they ate lunch on
yeah.
empty stomachs and made them feel a bit queasy. So But that's my kind of film. If it gets people doing that, more of it. It's like Abigail recently, that happened. I don't know if you
Mm,
heard about that. Someone threw up at the press
I
screening
did.
for that, but
Yeah, I heard stories about that.
so I hope they're okay. But it kind of adds to the. You got to
Mm.
admit, it does add to the occasion, doesn't it?
Yeah, I still need to watch Abigail, to be honest. I've heard there's like a lot of words. There's a lot of actual fake, like practical blood in it. Like they use several gallons worth, I think. Um,
It's bloody. It is very
mm.
bloody. That's all I'll say.
That duly noted.
Have
uh,
you seen Ready or Not?
no, that's another one I need to like tick off. I've seen the Scream film. Well, I know they've done two Scream films. The the not the last one, the one before it, the reboot.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I saw that one and thought it was fine. But Ready or Not is one that I've been meaning to watch for a while because I've heard it's very good. But I know it's on Disney Plus. I'll get around to it at some point.
I would suggest double billing that with Abigail
Mm.
for the amounts of blood. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
you'll see and be like, oh wow, they really went for it, and yeah, the results are spectacular.
So just to start off by delving into the writing that you do, what made you want to pursue writing in the first place? Was it something that kind of came first and it just so happened to line up with your passion for film, or did the passion for film come first?
So I'd say film has been a big part of my life. Like I'm gonna say my
Mm,
family as well, because we used to go to the cinema a lot as a family, um, back in the 90s in particular and early 2000s. But I went to study film and journalism at
mm,
university, so took my passion of film there. And then when I came out of uni, I thought to myself, why don't I just start film reviews on
yeah.
my own blog and just took it from there. It started as a bit of a hobby, and then more the more it went on, the more I was like, people aren't reading this, blah blah
Mm,
blah. I'd give up. It's going nowhere. And then it was a pandemic actually that sort of made me take it back on as a hobby again, because obviously access to screeners was a bit better because you could
yeah.
get links to watch at home. And then I thought just take it up and keep going from there. And it's become a bit of a snowball effect where I'm writing more. I'm actually enjoying writing as well, because before I was like, I'm just writing and no one's reading it. Whereas at least I kind of know that if I write now, there's a core group that will read it because I get the
Mm,
feedback kind of thing, which is always good to hear. But it sort of led to me reaching out more to the studios and PR companies and
yeah.
being able to go to press screenings, which has helped a lot, because before it was writing um, on the film's release and then writing
Mm,
a review over that weekend. And
yeah.
obviously, if I was busy, I wouldn't write until the next week, so it would be behind. I always feel now it's better to kind of get a review out if you can before release. Doesn't
Mm,
matter if it's after, because that's had to be done sometimes. But
mm,
just the access to screenings has helped. And it's one of those things that I've reflected on and gone, I kind of wish I did that when I first started writing out at uni, because that was when I started back in 2012.
mm,
I just think to myself, if I built up my blog there, my own site there, and sort of started reaching out a bit earlier, I could have been in this position a bit
mm,
sooner and maybe done something with it, because I just did my 9 to 5 job as well as
yeah.
doing it. Got stuck in a rut of doing that job and writing when I could. Whereas
Mm,
you never know, if I pushed myself a bit more when I was younger, I might have pushed myself to get into the
mm,
publishing side of things more. Who knows? But yeah,
mm,
it's something I really like doing. I enjoy going to the screenings, been able to cover some really good festivals as well. So
mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree, and I don't want to kind of put words in your mouth, but again, disagree or agree with what I'm about to say. But like, especially because I've been like, for example, with this YouTube channel, I've been doing it since 2015, and during those first, because I didn't start doing press stuff until 2022, and a lot of that early stages, I didn't really know one how you'd even how you'd go about approaching that sort of thing, or two that it even kind of existed. Like I knew press screenings were a thing, but like it was just this distant thing in my head of like, oh yeah, that'd be nice, at some point that'd be a nice pipe dream thing. Um, but especially for the first few years, it never feels like something you can actually do. Like it's a tangible thing that's doable.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, no, I had that. I had that in my head as well. I was like, well, if I reach out, will I just sort of get ignored and
mm,
will they actually take me seriously? And then it's just all about when I started doing it in the pandemic and just literally was just hassling and
mm,
managed to get on some press lists and then just started getting what at first was like straight to like VOD,
yeah.
films you'd never heard of, and they were awful. But getting a
Mm,
review out there, not what they wanted, because they were like, "Oh, review this for us, and hopefully it'll be
mm,
good." And it's like, no, it's pretty crap, really. But I've got to review it somehow and get writing and
yeah.
try and get a like readership together. But
Mm,
yeah, it was a learning curve because you just have to take sort of the hits as well as taking the successes because there's
yeah.
some that are just hard to crack when you're first starting out, and then
Mm,
it's all about like the building relationships, and then eventually when you get a foothold in, you just try to not be
mm,
so pushy on the emails and like just build a rapport. And
yeah.
yeah, that's how I found it, and just hope it continues. But you never know, it could be one of those things where it only lasts a few years and then all of a sudden they block you out, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, considering I've only been like delving into the press stuff for the last 3 years now, I'm still relatively new to all of it. So like that, I'm still in that boat of I have to, I need to start developing that mentality of badgering them a bit more because I'm too polite. I'm way too
No, no,
polite.
yeah. Honestly, I know exactly where you're coming from because I like
Mm,
if I keep badgering them, or will they get so annoyed that they blacklist me because they're like, oh, he keeps on
yeah.
emailing us. But at the end of the day, not to the point where you're emailing them like every day or something, but
Mm,
I've left it a week or two and I've chased up and just the best thing to do is like you've already said you're polite about it, and for me, it's just being polite and being sort of. There's no need to be rude to them. I get they're doing a job and sometimes they forget, but at the same time,
yeah.
like they'll probably listen to you more if you're polite, which you've said you are already. I know I am in my emails. So
At least I try and be.
yeah, yeah. Obviously, if they say something you
Mm,
don't want to hear, it
yeah.
can be hard to be polite. But yeah, I found that route the best route for me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think like the fest, especially using LFF as an example, that's quite straightforward. Like you get the accreditation and then you're kind of in. Whereas just
Mm.
it's the individual press screenings that I'm still kind of struggling with because it's only this year that I've started actually trying to go to them. And out of the 5 or 6 that I've applied for, I've only got into two, which was Dune and If. Everything else, I either got. I'm trying to think now. One rejection and then the rest were no, two rejections and then the rest were like just nothing at all.
Yeah.
And then one I forgot was in my spam folder. That's my fault. I wanted to just ask about your approach. I get this is something we kind of already touched on right at the start. But how do you approach your writing? Does it change dependent on the film, or if there's a specific angle you're going for with that specific film? I suppose it's from my perspective, it's kind of different if it's a piece opposed to a review. But as most of your stuff is reviews, do you have a specific approach for that?
In terms of writing, it's pretty much the same thing. Like I mentioned earlier, I'll try and fit some personal stuff in if I can. If it's something that
Mm,
really affects me personally, I'll try and do that. I actually have thought about trying to reach out about doing features somewhere, maybe pitching.
mm,
I have no idea how to do it, so I need to take some sort of crash course or get advice from people. But um, it's something I would like to try my hand at because I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but you
mm,
could maybe be a bit even more personal in a feature, especially if
yeah.
it's film really close to you. But like to answer this question differently, I've recently, last year or so, been on TikTok.
Mm,
So that's a different ball game altogether when it comes to doing reviews because it's like
mm,
not writing them down on computer screen or on a blog. It's actually saying them out loud. And when I first started, I was very nervous. I still sometimes get that, and I'm like, I need to get my words out do I write a script before or do I just go off the cuff? I know what I
Mm,
sort of want to say because I mostly go from, say, if I put a reaction post out after the film, I'll mostly try and stick to what I've said there and just elaborate. So that's fresh in my head, but
yeah.
sort of starting that up and getting that going and knowing what to say, how long to try and keep them. I found myself rambling on a bit more in some of them lately, but
Mm,
that's been an interesting sort of new field to try and get into because I've always sort of questioned whether I should do a YouTube channel, but
mm,
whether it would get watched, that's always been at the back of my mind. You know, like, will people read my writing?
yeah.
Like, then again, will people watch the video with me talking about film? How many people will want to watch that? So I started a TikTok and it's actually been going really well. Like I found
Mm,
myself a lot more confident talking about the films in some personal manner. There's been some films, like I said, that I just want to elaborate further in, and
yeah.
there's some that I just brief briefly does it. Like you don't need to elaborate further. And
Mm,
yeah, they've been getting interactions, some negative, some positive, mostly positive, but there's been the
yeah.
odd negative case. Like when I first started, I obviously did a rating system of from the dog's bollocks, which is a 5 star,
Yeah.
to utter bollocks, which is 1 star. And
Mm,
I called a film The Bollocks, which is a 4 star. And I had a guy on Facebook sending me Oxford Dictionary definitions of what the word bollocks means, saying, "You're saying this film is good, but you're calling it The Bollocks. Do you know what bollocks means?" And I was like, oh, I'm this. He sent me the dictionary definition, so I just sent him the Urban Dictionary definition, and he just didn't respond. And I was like,
oh wow.
"Come on, guys, come on."
I mean, I can understand if it's like because calling something like the bollocks is a very British thing. So like, I can understand if it's like someone from a different country maybe not going, oh, he's called it bollocks, it must be bad. But yeah, that's just stupid. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. I kind of prefer it when it's people
mm,
that are actually talking about the film
yeah,
and at least have something to say about the film, construct constructive criticism about the film. Like
yeah,
just say Bad Boys Ride or Die recently. I've
mm,
had a few on there, and some are relatively sane,
mm.
saying, "Okay, see where you're coming from," but then I've just had a tirade of people like having a go at me because I Bad Boys 2 is my least favorite in the franchise,
Hmm.
and boy, I did not know that film had so many fans.
Yeah,
They've been coming for me on there, but yeah, it's just a just laugh it off kind of thing because at least they're not getting
mm.
personal. That's when it starts to get a bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
I so I as you know, I do TikTok. I don't do TikTok nearly as much.
Mm.
It's something I need to get back into because I've been just so busy the last few months. It's always a side thing, and YouTube's the priority. But most of the time it's like a small tight knit group of people that responds, and then every now and then you get one absolute, you know, just come out of nowhere and just comment. So I think last year I did. I think it was last year I did something where I tried to make a sound go viral where it was like which one of these films from 2023 best fits this one, so like what was the film that made you cry the most, what was the film that made you that you loved, what do you think's underrated. And I think I got a comment, it was like a good paragraph long, saying that like if a film makes you cry then you're emotionally intelligent and your brain is made of mush and it hasn't developed yet. And I'm like, wow, like who shat in your cornflakes? Jesus Christ.
Sorry, that was my burner account.
God damn it. But just going back to the different formats and different styles, one thing I can say after doing YouTube since 2015 is that like TikTok has this approach to it where like you can be more rough around the edges and it kind of helps, whereas YouTube, I know from trial and error that like I've been doing it this long and it's only in the last year that I've hit the 1,000 subs mark. So it's only finally going somewhere after like 9 years. But you do have to put more time and effort and resources into it to get anywhere. And even then, that's not guaranteed. It's either something you do click with or don't. Because I know some people that's like, as soon as they start, they're doing like incredibly well. And then there's me who's like dragging on for 9 years and I'm only just getting somewhere. Whereas I feel like with writing, because everyone's kind of on the same playing field, and you don't need to judge like all production value of a video or how well constructed the review is, or how eloquent he spoke about the film. The reviews, everyone's kind of now judged on like written ones, that is, everyone's kind of judged on the same playing field. Although
Yeah.
even that's kind of been proven wrong recently with the stuff you mentioned earlier, with like people being personal, and then people just being going straight for the jugular, saying no, you can't do that.
But what
So
I like about that situation was that
mm,
the person who actually called it out,
yeah,
um, well, not like this because you never like to see people like driven away from things, but
mm,
he did. I don't know if he's back on, but he did deactivate his account because so many people were calling
mm,
him out for basically being too brash and trying to set people on this person for actually putting some personal feelings into a review, which
mm,
it massively backfired. He was trying to, seems like he was trying to humiliate someone,
yeah,
and it backfired. And as much as like, yeah,
mm,
you want to try that with someone, it's just like there are people out there that will
mm,
connect with it, and yeah, just don't see an issue with doing that myself. And if you're
yeah.
trying to shame someone for doing it, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, there's no set. There is like, I guess there's like a way that people presume you should be writing, but at the end of the day, there is no set way to write something.
Yeah, no rules, is there? Let's be honest.
No, just write whatever works for you. It like I know there are some publications and websites that might want us, we don't want a very personal piece. We want it written this way, but for the most part, write it however works for you. That's what I kind of feel.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like some publications and that must the editor must come out and say, look, we don't want this. We would
Yeah,
rather you just speak about film. But
yeah,
if they haven't been told that, then do what you want, as
yeah,
far as I'm aware. And that's
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Um, so just talking about your writing career and your career covering film generally, what would you say has been a career highlight for you, if there's one or a couple that you can think of?
So initially it was attending screenings. So
Mm-hmm.
my first press screening was A Quiet Place Part Two,
Mm,
which was like the first one I went to, and it was at the Cineworld IMAX.
mm-hmm.
And we got there, and now I know the whole deals of queuing and maybe getting there a bit early to make sure you get a good seat. We got there relatively late, and the only seats available were right at the front. So we
Mm.
sat the second row from the front in that
Oh
IMAX
God.
screen, which
Yeah.
when you're watching something like that, it
Mm.
was, oh my God, this is insane. But yeah, going to screenings initially and then not realizing that sometimes like the stars or the directors will actually appear at those screenings was quite
Yeah.
cool to start with. I was like, wow, I'm in the same room as like Salma Hayek and
Mm.
someone like that. And then obviously through the writing, getting like a quote in a trailer was pretty cool. I
Mm.
think like the Venom Let There Be Carnage one was pretty funny because it was like just my tweet and it was like
Mm.
the most fucking insane film of the year. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool because it's on a pretty insane film that
Mm.
it is the right thing to say about that film. But I think because it was linked to my Twitter account then,
Yeah.
it didn't feel like I'd achieved it did feel like an
Mm.
achievement, but then the icing on the cake for me and my career highlight so far, I would say, is getting my Barton reviews stars,
Yeah.
5 stars on the Dead Reckoning trailer.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I had no idea it happened.
Mm.
They reached out to me saying, did you have a review, blah blah blah, and I was like,
Mm.
yeah, here's my five-star review, love the
Mm.
film. And then a few days later they messaged back saying we'd like to use a quote, and I was like, yeah, definitely go
Mm.
ahead. And then I think it was Jed,
Mm.
like you know Jed, don't you? He
Yeah.
uh he sent me a message on Instagram because he'd written, I think for Film Hounds, he'd written a
Mm.
review, and they had 5 stars on the trailer as well.
Yeah.
And he sent me a message on Instagram saying, "Check this out." And then it was a quick flash, but
Mm.
it was there, and I was like, "That's insane." That to me, because like
Mm.
it's fine having for me. It had the Twitter account on the Venom trailer, but
Yeah.
having art and reviews amongst like
Mm.
some pretty established names, I was like, "This is
Mm.
mental. How the hell have I managed that?" And
Mm.
yeah. And when I saw the poster in Leicester Square the next
Yeah.
time I went, I thought, oh, they're going to be on a poster as well. But they
Mm.
weren't, which was a shame. But they were on the trailer. So
Yeah.
that that's my career highlight so far. Don't know if I'll
Mm.
ever top it, but we try.
Yeah, I don't know why. I could have sworn there was like a pull quote that they shoved in the trailer from you as well, or was it just the 5 stars?
Nah, just the stars. Yeah, I was hoping for a pull quote, but yeah, but that's what I thought it was going to be when he said to me, "Have
Mm.
you seen this?" Because that's what they'd asked for. I was like,
Yeah.
"Quote's going to be in the trailer," but then the stars. I was like, "That's pretty
Mm.
cool. That's cool."
Yeah. Now that we're kind of part of a nice tight knit group now, with the film Twitter lot. It's quite nice seeing other people kind of like their achievement. Like I think I can't remember specific examples, but there's a few people who have had other like pull quotes on the back of Blu-rays and stuff in posters, and it's just nice to see those sort of things because you can tell all the hard work that people put into it, like yourself, like myself. And it's just nice to see those things actually kind of pay off. Like you do all these
Yeah,
screenings, you do all these festivals, and just to have that all that time and effort actually kind of result in something is just really lovely to see. And
yeah, it's good. It's good because there's been people in the past that have said to me, they're like, "Oh, so you're only really going to these screenings to see the film early?" And it's like, well,
mm,
in a way, yeah, because I
yeah,
want to get a review out early. But then it's not.
mm,
In my case, it's not just seeing the film, writing
mm,
a little tweet about it online. It's like actually going back, thinking about it, and trying to articulate your thoughts into a review, which
mm,
it can be easy, but
yeah,
sometimes you'll probably find this as well. It can be
mm,
hard, and if it's a film that
yeah,
for me the hardest review to write is a film that is a 3 star. You think is a
mm,
3 star,
yeah,
pretty average film because sometimes it can't impress. It doesn't impress you that much, but you're like, am I
mm,
sounding too harsh if I'm saying, does this really sound like it's a 3 star review? Whereas it's easy for me to write a 1 star review or a five
mm,
star review because you just gush about the film or
yeah,
hate on the film. But yeah,
yeah,
writing an average review is quite hard. And when it's like, it's nice to go to these early screenings. I get that, and seeing the
mm,
films early is all good. But you're doing it for a reason,
mm,
and writing a review sometimes aren't as hard as you might think. So
yeah.
yeah.
I can completely agree with you on that one. I think the worst one was during the first year or two of COVID because all we kind of really had were these straight to streaming Netflix and Amazon films, a lot of which were crap.
Mm,
um,
yeah.
and it got to the point where I'd made like 3 or 4 reviews in a row for this YouTube channel, and I'm like, these last 5 have been just meh, and I have nothing else to say, and I feel like I'm just regurgitating the same points every single video. It's just like this aspect's fine, this aspect's crap, the overall film is alright. Rinse and repeat for the next few. And it was only like once in a blue moon you'd get a film come along and be like, oh wow, that was actually really good, or that was actually really bad. And that the average reviews I would say are more draining because you have to kind of go out of your way to try and think of something to say. And
Mm,
half the time, especially for that like time period during COVID, it was like there is nothing even remarkable to say about this film.
yeah. 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 I suppose, like you said, it's trying to find something
mm,
different, like a different way of putting it. Because I found myself
yeah.
just like using the same phrases, and I'm
Mm,
like, well, they're not the same film, but I'm using the same phrase, and it kind of
mm,
makes it seem like I'm not even trying. But then, in a way, does that is that me trying to say it mirrors the film, and they're not even trying? But that, as harsh as that sounds, obviously we all know
yeah.
how hard it is to make a film, get a film released. So yeah, it's just trying to find that sort of that angle, I guess. And
Yeah.
so when you find it, it's like wicked, got it. You get
Mm,
in a groove. But one of the hardest things I found is just sitting there like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to write. How is this ever going to come to me?
mm.
And then eventually it just clicks, but it can take a while.
I just want to get now going from your career to your actual like taste in film and all that sort of stuff. I want to get a rough idea in terms of what was the first film that you remember seeing that fully sparked your love for film, if you can remember what that was.
My go-to answer for this is always Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always say it's my favorite film of all time. Is that as weird as it sounds? It's the first film I believe I went to the cinema to see, and I
Mm.
would have been nearly 3.
Mm.
But I have vague recollections and memories of it's like the T-Rex scene where it's chasing the car, and it's in
Yeah.
the where it's in the wing mirror.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I have recollections of that and the Velociraptors.
Mm.
My mum says that I was climbing all over her to hide, which obviously the film did its job. But
Yeah.
it's one of those films that me and my brothers in particular watched a lot when we were kids.
Mm.
So that we watched a lot of films when we were kids, like over and over. Like Fifth Element is another one that we
Mm.
watched a hell of a lot. Independence Day is another one,
Yeah.
as you can see the little clock behind me. Um, but Jurassic Park for me is that one.
Yeah.
Favorite film of all time, made by my favorite director,
Mm.
and I don't think that will ever change. It will take a hell of a lot to beat it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my all-time favorite and the one that
Mm.
probably sparked it all.
Weirdly enough, considering how long I've been doing this series, you're only the second person to say Jurassic Park, and I would have thought more people would have said that by now. I
Who was
think
the other one?
it was Paul Klein.
Oh, yeah. I was going
Yeah,
to guess that because I've spoken to him about that before, and I know that's one of his favorite films. So
yeah. I think he. I mean, Paul loves to talk on anyway, but he spent like a good 20, 10, like 10, 20 minutes just talking about that on its own, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to try and cut this down, aren't I? But that is a brilliant answer because it's one of those films that's just endlessly rewatchable. And
Hmm.
there's, I don't know about you, but like I find something new to appreciate about it every time I watch it.
Yeah, yeah. Not so much, probably because I watched it so much that
Yeah.
kind of know it off by heart anyway. But like,
Mm.
I just feel it's one of those films where it's so minimalist with
Mm.
the dinosaurs, right? I think
Yeah.
it's 16 minutes or something they're on screen in total, which
Something like that.
when it's a 2 hour film and that is
Yeah. Mm.
the main storyline, the main attraction is the dinosaurs. It's kind of so impressive
Mm.
how good a film Spielberg actually made with that, and it just shows that he did it with Jaws as well.
Yeah.
Less is more. All of these
Mm.
films now, horror films in particular, that will like show you the monster early, and
Yeah.
I always found like say, what's it, The Conjuring? I remember
Mm.
watching,
Mm.
and it was really tense. I was like, this is one of the scariest films I've seen.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the bit where the you see the demon on top of the cupboard,
Mm. Mm.
and I was like, okay, we've seen it now. It's
Yeah.
not scary, and it's kind of like, although the dinosaurs are a different thing because you see the dinosaurs, it's like wow, that moment they see the first see the dinosaurs on
Mm.
the island with the music, the way the scene is built up. One of my favorite scenes of all time, but also it just gives you chills every time.
Yeah.
It's just perfect, and then like every single scene moving forward with the dinosaurs in particular
Mm.
is just there's always something different. It's whether it's just the suspense or the absolute awe of what you're watching. Like
Mm.
that T-Rex escape is just insanely good. The
Mm.
CGI looks so much better than some of the stuff you see this today.
Yeah.
But also the human elements of the film as well, where they're just
Mm.
sitting in the car talking about he's just Ian Malcolm's talking about chaos theory. I know he's heavily flirting, let's be honest,
Yeah.
but it's just so fascinating to watch because these
Mm.
characters are so vastly different, but they've all been plunged into this horrific experience that
Mm.
it's just so fascinating to watch. And
Yeah.
yeah, I could watch it over and over again in the same
Mm.
day. But I think just talking about what it spawned, like the franchise,
Mm.
I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but like I really liked what he did with The Lost World, even though it was a totally different film. I know it's
Mm.
a lot of people don't like it as much, but I feel like that is still my second favorite one. And then
Mm.
I did appreciate what he did with the Jurassic World series, but
Mm.
it's one of those things where you kind of have to go into them now thinking they're never gonna top the original film. There's loads of films like
Yeah.
that. I believe many people will say that about Alien, even though I still think Aliens is my favorite.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where if you go into the new ones not expecting anything to be better than the first one,
Mm.
you'll have a better time. Because let's be honest, I mean, Jurassic
Mm.
World was really good. I had fun with that.
Yeah.
Fallen Kingdom, I feel, is massively underrated. I
Yeah.
really like the gothic sense
Mm.
that that film has, especially in the finale. But Dominion is one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen, considering
I
how big a fan I am of
yeah.
Jurassic Park. I remember, I think I saw Jurassic Park at the Prince Charles with a
Mm.
double bill with Jaws that year, and then Dominion came out, and I was like, oh, come on,
Mm.
dinosaurs in the wild. This is what we've
Yeah.
been building up to.
Mm.
What are we going to do with it? But basically they did Jurassic Park again, but
Mm.
not as good. And it even had a scene. This I'll never be over this scene. And some
Okay.
people might love it. And I know
Yeah.
he gets unnecessary hate, but for me, he gets hate for the scene, Chris
Mm.
Pratt, where he fucking chokes out the dinosaur,
Okay.
the Dilophosaurus. He just chokes it
Mm.
out. It's like a really tense scene. There's no stakes because none of the main lot
Mm.
die.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Bryce Dallas Howard is there. She's face to face with the Dilophosaurus. Yeah, it would have been incredibly horrible to
Mm.
have
Mm.
her killed off. But the way he just comes along and just chokes it out and then it just runs off. It gets shocked, I know.
Mm.
But it's just like, what are we doing here? These dinosaurs are just not threatening anymore. Like
Mm.
in the first film, they're either killing machines, well, they are killing machines
Yeah.
because let's be honest, yeah.
Mm.
And then in the second one, it's just they are again killing machines, and it's just Spielberg being so
Mm.
fucking nasty with it. Like you get this guy who's just Eddie, the character, he's just saved them from dying over a cliff, and he gets ripped in half
Mm.
for his actions. And then the guy, as much as a bit of a dick he is to the dinosaurs, that
Yeah.
scene where I think his name's Dieter in the film, where he
Mm.
gets eaten by the little compies.
Mm.
Man, when I saw it in the cinema the first time, like we went as a family,
Yeah.
and I had nightmares for
Mm.
days after that scene because it was so horrific watching a grown man just being pecked to death by these
Good
little
God.
creatures. And it's just it's just
Mm.
like I'd rather have the films go back to what the first one in particular. And I
Yeah.
know we're getting a new one.
Mm.
Gareth Edwards doing it, and I am so excited because
Mm.
he is a director that understands that sense of spectacle, that sense of awe, like what he did
Yeah.
with Godzilla.
Mm.
I feel like makes him the perfect man to make a
Yeah.
Jurassic Park film. I know it will be different to Jurassic Park because if they're going to do follow on from Jurassic World Dominion
Mm.
and have the film where the dinosaurs are out in the wild like we should have got,
Mm.
it's going to be different probably because he's maybe going to show them more often than they did in the first film. But
Yeah.
I am fully confident that he will deliver a really good film.
Yeah.
And
Funny.
probably,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say, funny enough, you bring up Godzilla because I was going to bring that up in terms of a film that really understands less is more,
Mm.
and because I never understood people's complaints about like, oh, there's not much Godzilla in the film, and I've always loved the film since it came out purely because like, right, it's got a good thing going here, and it knows what it has, which is Godzilla, and it's doing it right. Like, it's not going to show it all the time, but when it does show it, it has even more impact than it
Yeah,
just being on screen every 5 minutes.
yeah, no, definitely. It's one of I think it's with that series in particular, people are just it's the human characters, isn't it? And when you compare them to the rest of the MonsterVerse, the human characters in that are much more tolerable than they are,
Yeah.
say, in even Godzilla 2.
Mm,
I think
mm,
Godzilla 2 and maybe Godzilla versus Kong
mm.
were the times where the human characters was like, don't care about this. If you're going to change how you approach Godzilla, because that first film, it's like, look, this beast is like
Yeah.
the impact he has when he appears on camera, because you don't see him in full shots until like, what, half
The
hour,
back
45
end.
minutes?
Yeah. Like the back end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the rest of the films is just like let's just have him. Now Godzilla's like the most athletic thing you've ever seen, whereas in the first film he's like stomping around and he can move, but
Yeah.
he's not moving like he does in Godzilla Kong when he's
Mm,
getting Kong to hitch a lift on him, and it's like, what's happening here? It's fun. I had a fun time with
yeah.
that film. It's in my top 20, I think, for the year,
Mm,
which might be a horrendous thing to say, but I had a good time with it. But yeah, I'm really hopeful for that new
mm,
Jurassic Park slash World film from Gareth Edwards,
yeah.
and yeah, I'm just looking forward to Scarlett Johansson
Mm.
kicking dinosaurs' asses. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm very excited for that as well because I don't. I'm one of the few people, like, because I know there's a few people out there, a lot of people out there that they're not, they don't hate on Gareth Edwards, but like they don't give him the credit that he kind of deserves. I still think he's yet to make a bad film because I've loved him ever since Monsters, which I think is incredibly
Mm.
underrated. And then when I saw Godzilla, I'm like, yeah, this just feels like Monsters on a massive budget. And then obviously Rogue One was great, Creator was great.
I always
And
like Rogue One. You see, I always
yeah,
forget that he directed that, and then you just like, wow, like he directed one of
Mm.
Disney Star Wars, right? Gets a lot of hate,
Yeah.
and some of it is just that. A lot of it is we won't even get into that. A lot
Yeah.
of it is just we won't even listen to that. But Rogue One, I know, is a lot of people's favorite
Mm.
Disney Star Wars, and it's not mine, but I can see why people say that. And Edward's just, man, that film is just so good.
Mm.
And it's just like, how can I forget he did that? And like you said, the creator was
Mm.
wicked as well.
Yeah, to be honest, as I was watching the creator, because I know he had a lot of issues making Rogue One with like what he wanted to do, the time constraints, and all that, which again is something we could spend a whole other hour talking about.
Mm.
But watching the creator, I've kind of got the impression of like this feels like what he wanted to do properly with Rogue One. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Rogue One for what it is, but I was watching the creator and I'm like, this feels like a sci-fi war film, and I
Mm.
feel like that's what he was trying to do with Rogue One. Like, to an extent, you do see that in like the last 30 minutes, but I don't know. It just felt like him just let loose. And if they let him do that on Jurassic World, I would love to see that because I feel like he just
Boom.
yeah. I
It's
don't know.
it's seamless the visual effects are, right, in the
Mm,
creator. You watch that
yeah.
and it's like wow.
Mm,
If you didn't know, obviously you would know because obviously there's some things that you have to do visual effects, but
yeah.
it gives me hope that if he was to make something that was a bit more restrained with Jurassic, then we could
Yeah.
see some incredible effects tied into the film. Because I think
Mm.
Dominion, as good as the effects were, yeah, just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I've yet to see Dominion, but it's the one film. I think
Oh,
it's
it's
the
great. You'll love it. Listen to my glowing review.
I I think I think the only one I've actually not seen all the way through outside of Dominion is Jurassic Part 3. Like, I've seen all the memes from it, but
Mhm.
I haven't watched it all the way through for like a good several years. But Dominion's the only one I haven't properly seen all the way through. And the more I like, some people, one day someone will say, "Oh yeah, it's not too bad," and then another day someone will say, "Yeah, it's crap." So I'm intrigued just out of curiosity, just to know, just to know how, just to know what it's like. I know there's a lot of locusts in it for some reason as well.
Oh, don't get me started. Do not
Okay.
get me started. That's my greatest disappointment with that film. Like, why?
Yeah.
I always say it. Some people are just like, you need to just let it
Mm.
go. I can't. You got a film where it's about dinosaurs on the mainland. It was set up, although
Yeah.
the last film wasn't as good as it could have been. It was set up perfectly,
Mm.
and they do that. They make it mainly about locusts eating crops, and it's like, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. This should be about dinosaurs
Mm.
terrifying people and being rounded up, not, oh, this. Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go off on a tangent. I won't because
It's
you
all
haven't
right.
seen it. And
It's all right. To move swiftly onwards to avoid
please
complaints about
do.
the.
I can feel my blood pressure rising.
um, and this is probably the worst question to follow this up with. What's the worst film you've ever seen, or one of the worst films you've ever seen?
um, I feel like I've watched a lot worse films recently in the
Mm,
recent years. And last year, my worst film of last year is arguably the worst film I've ever seen, and it's actually got a sequel this year,
okay.
which I've heard is actually better because the budget's a bit more, and it's
Oh,
actually,
I know where you're going with
you know
this.
exactly what
I
I'm going
know
to say,
exactly where you're going. Yeah.
is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Now, I thought it was quite an interesting idea when they actually announced. Now we're getting
Mm.
a Pooniverse or
Yeah,
Pooniverse
that's the
or something.
name of it. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it, but I'm pretty sure
No,
Pooh
that
is
is
in
the
the
name I think they've officially got because
Pooniverse. That
I think
sums it up perfectly.
I think a couple of weeks ago, out of curiosity, I was just like, yeah, I remember them doing like a cinematic universe thing, and I'm like, what did they call it again? I looked it up and I was like, okay, fuck's sake, they went with that. They were actually calling it the Pootiverse. Christ.
But yeah, I don't know if you've seen it. It
I
literally.
I wanted
Uh,
to see it, and like you said, because the sequel's actually supposed to be not that bad, all of a sudden, I'm actually now kind of intrigued to see what all the fuss was about with the first one, but at the same time, do I waste an hour and a half? of my life
It's
watching it.
so weird because it's one of these films where I'll give it its due that the last
Mm,
few scenes of the film are actually decent,
mm,
but I can't just forgive everything that came before because especially the opening to the film, it
yeah,
just get it's low budget,
yeah.
but there's low budget and then it's like where the masks they've got and stuff. It's just like
Mm.
I don't know, have you ever played GTA?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
In the later games where you buy like you can buy the masks in the shop and
Right,
then do
yeah.
heists and stuff. It's like that. It's like they're wearing the worst rubber masks and
Mm.
yeah, just awful. I mean there are a few more from recent years. I don't know if you've seen Cats.
No, I deliberately have not watched Cats because I was just like, it looked crap to begin with, and I'm so there are some films where like you watch the trailer or you hear the premise and you're like, you know what, that's probably not going to be great, but I'll give it a go, and then you watch it and it just confirms your suspicions. Cats, I was like, yeah, I'm not fucking touching that with a barge pole. I
It's
can
like
stay right in there.
one of the most beloved musicals of all time. I
Yeah,
think the director did Les Mis, which I really enjoyed.
yeah,
Me
Tom
and
Hooper, yeah.
yeah, Tom Hooper, yeah, that's it. Me and my wife Vicky, we sat down to watch it one night,
Mm.
and quite honestly, it was like we'd done drugs when we hadn't. We were on a trip, even though we hadn't even touched any drugs. It was one of those
Mm.
films that was like, what the hell am I watching? And
Wow.
yeah, quite terrifying at times as well.
The vibe I get from like from what people have said about the film and also just watching the trailer is like it looks and feels like a film that should have come out in like 2006, like when there were all these weird experiments with CGI that really didn't pay off like in the
Yeah,
early mid 2000s, but it came out like a few years ago.
horrible lab experiments is how you should explain the
Yeah.
look of that film. The cats in those. Oh God, good Lord.
Oh Christ! Horrible lab experiments. That if no one's made that letterbox list, that is now one of us is going to make that. I swear, because
Yeah,
I can already think of like a few films that could
it'll just be cats. It will literally just be cats.
just cats on repeat. Um, so the second to last question, and the one that I like to ask everyone on this series, and it's a rather daunting one because I know the last couple of episodes I've had, people have told me in advance, like, good God, that's a bastard of a question. Is if you were stranded on a desert island and you could only have 5 films with you, what are you choosing and why?
Right. I have thought about this question, and
Okay,
I think I've got five lined up,
go on.
but I feel like I've got to cheat with one of them, and you can tell me whether this counts as one.
That's
Probably
fine.
know what
We
it's going to
we've
be.
had, to be honest, I've allowed a couple of cheats here and there. If there's like I can't remember who it was, but I think someone wanted to put the whole of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy in one spot. So I was
That's what
like,
I've got.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense because it kind of feels like a continuous thing. So I allow those sorts of things.
Right. So I've got Jurassic Park first up, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite film of all time. Got to be done. Then I've got Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
um, as one. If you did say that I could only have one of them, I would have said Return of the King because I
Yeah.
think that film is just perfection. Uh, so the reason for Lord of the Rings is pretty obvious. It's just so epic. I feel
Mm.
like I could stick the three extended editions on, and it would make the days. Well, is it even longer than a day? No, it's not longer than a day, is it? No, that's just
Oh
silly.
God.
No,
No.
it's not. It's definitely
Okay.
not.
It
I'm sitting
feels
here
like it.
thinking it will make a whole day go by, but it definitely wouldn't. Maybe yeah, half a day. Let's go with half a day. If I
Mm.
stuck the extended editions of those on back to back,
Yeah.
I'd get over a half a day done, and I could do something else the rest of the day. But yeah, it's
Mm.
just like people have spoken about it
Yeah.
enough, and there's enough hyperbole. Well, I can't remember the
Hyperbole.
word.
Yeah.
Hyperbole. Yeah, there's enough said about it, and it speaks for itself. It's
Yeah.
such a great trilogy. It's my favorite trilogy of all time. To be
Mm.
fair, I won't take the Hobbit films. I'll just take Lord of the Rings.
Cool. Yep.
The Hobbit films can be used to float away if I wanted to try and escape.
Just like
But
20 copies of The
yeah.
Hobbit. Just like make a raft out of it.
I'll attach the discs to my hand and use them to collect as much water as possible.
Put them on the end of paddles, just
Yeah,
keep going.
yeah, that's what they're good for. Next up, I'd say The Dark Knight, which
Yeah,
again, probably a pretty generic answer, but
yeah.
to me, it's the greatest comic book film of all time. I feel like, as it sounds weird to say because it's quite a long film and there's a lot to pack into the film, but it's one of those films that I think you could just
Mm,
rewatch so often
yeah.
because with loads of films, there's so much to see on different viewings, and for
Mm,
this, it's just like one viewing, you'll be like, obviously, you got Heath Ledger's Joker, which is like the main attraction every time I
mm,
watch it. But there's other things that happen because he's not in the scene or he's in the scene and you're watching something else this time. It's just like, wow, Nolan just nailed it with that
mm.
film. It's that good. And yeah, great favorite Batman film, favorite superhero film.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I'll be taking that. Empire Strikes Back is next,
Nice.
mainly because Star Wars is probably the first franchise I got into as a kid.
Mm,
I remember we had the original trilogy on VHS, and we
yep.
watched them a lot. And I feel like Return of the Jedi when I was younger was my favorite, maybe because it had the Ewoks, and I was younger, and I was like, oh, they're cute. The second
Yeah.
one, Empire Strikes Back, is a bit dark, but
Mm,
the older I've got, the more I appreciate Empire Strikes Back for being that darker
yeah.
film in a trilogy. And yeah, I just feel even with all the new films that come out, and as good as the Revenge of the Sith was,
Yeah.
I'm only going to say that because I didn't like the other two in the prequel trilogy.
Mm,
I still think Empire Strikes Back just
mm,
holds out as the best for me. And
yeah.
yeah, one of those films that because it is Star Wars, I could just never get bored of it and watch it again and again. A lot of
Mm,
these films are all rewatch uh,
yeah.
ability to them. So yeah, there's that. And then I feel like I would need a comedy
Mm,
because a lot of these are quite dark. A lot of them involve a lot of people getting murdered by monsters or dinosaurs,
yeah.
or have psychopaths in them.
Mm,
And I went with my favorite comedy of all time, which is Liar Liar,
okay.
which when I watched when I watched it the first time
Mm.
as a kid, I nearly wet myself so many times. I am very susceptible at
Mm,
crying with laughter.
mm,
And this film, no matter how many times I watch it, it just gets me every time. It's Jim Carrey for me, like at the peak of his
yeah.
physical comedy powers, and he's the best to do that sort of thing for me. Uh, and it was hard to choose between that and Dumb and Dumber,
Mm,
but I think Liar Liar takes it just because it's that. Yeah, it's just so funny. Gets me every time. Just
mm,
he's probably my favorite comedic actor of all time,
mm.
and yeah, favorite comedy. So you need a bit of lightheartedness if you're going to be stranded on the island, right?
Yeah. No, that's fair. To be honest, I think Reese went for nothing but comedies.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah,
wanted to
he
have a good time
yeah,
then.
I think he just picked. I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure he picked his top five comedies of all time, and I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you for that one. I really
Yeah,
don't.
that's a good
Um,
strategy.
yeah, I love that. I love those picks. I do agree with you about the Dark Knight. Like, it's very long, but like I've seen it, God knows how many times, and I'll happily stick it on again because
But even like straight after, like,
yeah,
have you ever had that urge to just go, I'll watch that again right now? I mean, I haven't done
mm,
that, and I don't know
mm,
if people have, but like, I could easily do it if I had the
mm,
time. I'd be like, I'd watch that right now again. It's that good.
yeah, but yeah, brilliant choices. I also I wasn't quite I didn't quite know what comedy you were going to go with, but I like the fact that you've gone for a Jim Carrey one because there's like a load of his comedies from like the 90s going into the 2000s which just I think similar to you like I watched them as a kid and I just was cracking up like for me it was Bruce Almighty like
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah like I came in kind of a bit late to his stuff but like when I was a kid Bruce Almighty and The Mask
Oh, The
both
Mask,
yeah
yeah,
both
The
of those.
Mask, so good. That's that film that like that whenever you see on Twitter, well, I guess I should call it X these days, but
No, no, just call it Twitter. It's
when
fine.
they say like, "What's the hottest someone's ever looked in a film?" and I'm always like,
Mm,
Cameron Diaz in The Mask at the start when she walks in.
mm.
Yes, And the rest of the film is wicked as well.
Oh yeah.
Bear in mind, I'm not just saying it because of that. The rest of the film is so good.
Mm.
What would your five be actually?
Oh God, no one's actually come back
Sorry
and
to turn
asked
it
me.
around on you, but I'll ask you your five.
Oh my God. Oh dear. Uh, I don't actually know because the thing is, like, I'm so used to asking the question, I never
Yeah.
really think about it myself, and I can't remember if someone's thrown it my way before, but oh God. So I think I have to go with my favorite animated film of all time, which is Emperor's New Groove,
I've
which
actually never seen that, you know.
it is. I mean, I have personal preference because when I was a kid, it was the film I rewatched endlessly with my mum
Yeah.
when it was on VHS, and even now I can rewatch it. God knows how many times. I know the script back to front, like it's that quotable, and I still find it hilarious. Like you know how with some comedies you find it funny on like the first couple watches, and then you
Yeah.
watch it again like a few years down the line. It's like I found this funny. They're not laughing again. Um, I've
Is
never
it
had
Disney?
that. Yeah, it's I think it came out in 2000. I think either right before or right after that, like Treasure Planet of Atlantis.
Oh, okay. I
And
only watched Atlantis the first time a couple of years back, so I know there's another one I need to see, the Treasure Planet.
yeah, yeah. There's like a weird window of Disney films from the very early 2000s which just kind of get forgotten about. And Emperor's New Groove is like at the top of that list. But if you watch any of them, watch that one because like the comedy still holds up. The writing is brilliant, and the voice cast. Eartha Kitt as Yzma is like she is incredible. And I'd go for that. Um, Maybe Before Sunrise, just so it kind of because I like the whole trilogy of the Before films,
Another
but
film I haven't seen. I haven't seen any of them.
that I like a lot of people go for Before Sunset, but I prefer Before Sunrise just because it's like a nice short and sweet kind of makes you feel warm inside sort of film, whereas the other ones get a bit more dramatic leaning because it delves more into their relationship. Whereas this one is like love at first sight and they get to know each other over the course of an evening. It just has that kind of warm feel to it.
Okay.
Um, go with that. Oh God, I'm struggling for the other ones. Oh God. Uh Monty Python and the Holy Grail
Yeah,
because
that
it's
I have seen, and that is a very good choice.
yeah, a lot of people go for Life of Brian. I actually prefer Holy Grail because it's just some of the jokes are just so dumb and I love it.
Yeah.
Like the one that kind of sticks in my head is like the one where the two guards are seeing a guy coming from like mile away and they just repeat the same shot like three times in a row because he just
Yeah.
it's taking forever. Um that's three. Oh God, four and five. Ugh. Um Monsters Inc. I think maybe because I think
Solid
it's just
shout,
funny.
yes.
Yeah, do be aware. I'm thinking of these off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of struggling. And for five, I will go with Airplane because it's
Nice.
funny. I was debating the Lego Movie because I adore the Lego Movie, but actually I was also debating Rocky Horror Picture Show as well. But
Okay.
I've got so many bloody choices in my head. I think I'll go with Airplane because that's usually like tied for favorite straight like in terms of just a straight up comedy. That and Holy Grail are usually like my two near the top.
Yeah.
Airplane's just another one where the jokes are just stupid but they work.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
And
so
there's
stupid.
yeah, and it's just so rewatchable as well. Um, again, similar to Emperor's New Groove and I guess Holy Grail, you can just quote them back to front
Mm.
um, endlessly. Yeah, I guess that's my five. I don't. if someone asked me that in a later episode, I feel like I'm going to have a completely different set of five because I've never
But
really
that's
thought
good
about it.
though, because you've got loads of films that you could fall back on and enjoy as much as the others. So
Mm,
it's always
yeah,
good having more of a choice.
because I was debating like I don't know, like Drive, which is one of my favorites, or Alien, which is my default answer for like if someone says what's your favorite film of all time. But at the same time, I'm like I want to try and keep my five light-hearted if I'm
Mm.
stuck in a crappy situation like that, I want five that kind of make me feel a bit better about the shit
Yeah.
situation I'm in. To round things up, the last question I have is just a general one, and that is what upcoming films that are coming out this year or next few months uh, are there that you're particularly excited for?
Um, my most anticipated at the start of the year was Deadpool and Wolverine
Yep,
for
same.
obvious reasons. But ever since the new trailer released for Alien Romulus, I think that has now become top of the list because
Mm,
I know trailers can be deceiving,
mm-hmm,
and a lot of people since that trailer was released have been like, a good trailer doesn't make a good film, but
mm,
a good trailer can also signal what you're going to get. And I
yep,
feel like that trailer
yep.
gives us exactly what we're going to get in that film.
Mm.
I'm going to probably pronounce his name wrong, but is it Fede Alvarez,
Yeah,
the
I think that's
director?
it. Yeah.
Feel like he is the perfect man to make a film that if you're going to try and make it
Mm,
as horrific as the first film, I think he's the perfect choice. And that trailer, like that bit where it says no one can hear you, and then it just cuts them all screen. Oh, it
yeah.
was so. And I might be now going, oh my god, my hype is at an all-time high, and I can only be disappointed. But I have high hopes for that. What else the rest of the year? Twisters, I am really looking forward to. Twister is
Yep.
one of those films. Um, a bit like I mentioned earlier, when me and my brothers we would have watched Twister
Mm,
so often in the 90s and early 2000s. I just think that's a great 90s film. Whether they can make it the same way, make it as thrilling as it was before. Obviously, it's
mm,
got Glenn Powell instead of Bill Paxton.
yep.
Might be a bit of a downgrade, but Glenn
Mm,
Powell is one of the good ones around at the moment.
mm.
Apart from that, I am struggling to think of films coming out.
It's hard to try
Um,
and think of stuff on the spot because, like, I think when I've asked this question for the last couple of episodes, I then suddenly try and remember what's coming out, and I'm like, I don't know. Some of the big ones have already gone.
I've just thought another one is Gladiator 2.
Okay.
And I don't know why I'm thinking this because I wasn't too keen on Napoleon. I thought it was all right.
Mm,
And now I know that was Ridley Scott, but I'm just hoping that Napoleon is Ridley Scott sort of warming up for Gladiator 2. That makes
yeah.
sense. Like sort of getting back into the swing of I know he's made like The Last Duel and things like
Mm,
that, but I feel like Gladiator 2 has potential to be really, really good. I remember reading the descriptions of the footage
mm,
shown recently, and it was like, that sounds insane. And if they I don't. Again, it's probably not going to top the first film because
yeah.
the first film is like one of those all-time greats, classic film.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope they get somewhere near it, and I hope it's better than Napoleon. And
Yeah.
I
I.
kind of hope that if it isn't to be better than Napoleon, and if it's the same thing, I kind of hope we get more of Ridley Scott just going on rants during the press tour because it's always entertaining to listen to.
Half the time, that's more entertaining than the film that he releases.
I know. Even if you get people, you probably get people saying, "Oh, Ridley, it's a really great film. Like, you must have been so happy to make it." And it probably just go, "Fuck off."
Yeah, he would probably just reply like, "No, it was the most miserable experience of my entire life."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like those choices. I'm not excited for Gladiator 2. I'm more just like mildly intrigued because the original is as good as it is, and because
Hmm.
it's been such a long period of time since the first one. I'm more just like I'm cautiously optimistic a little bit when it comes to
Yeah.
that. I think until we see some proof, like a trailer or a poster, I've yet to kind of reserve anticipation or judgment on that. But I think
Yeah.
you and me share the same like two most anticipated. Like Deadpool and Wolverine has been my most anticipated since they announced it. The same for Alien Romulus as well. And the more trailers than that we see for Alien Romulus, the more I'm just sold.
Yeah.
Um, because similar to you, I like pretty much almost all of the Alien films. There's a couple of like Duffins in there, but I like almost all of them. I think Alien Covenant and Prometheus are like get too much hate.
Oh yeah.
Um, and as much as I really wasn't a fan of Alien 3, I can at least see what it was trying to do. If
Yeah,
that, yeah, like
I agree with that.
yeah, like even the bits where I'm like, yeah, this thing doesn't necessarily work. I still like appreciate the thing they were going for, like that xenomorph dog hybrid that like crawls up the walls and stuff. I'm like, yeah, the effect looks crap, but like in concept, that should be like really good. Um,
Yeah, yeah. With that, I was just like, the one thing I would have changed, and I feel like there was a one that who was it? What's his name? Neil Blom. Is it Neil Blomkamp was going to
yeah,
make a sequel directly from Aliens, just to ignore everything else, and
mm,
it's kind of like I would have been keen to see what they did with the survivors in it. Like Newt
mm,
was dead at the beginning, and so was I'm going to say Hicks. Is it Hicks?
yeah,
Hudson. Hicks
yeah,
at Hudson is Bill Paxton in it. Yeah, it's
mm,
Hicks. Then be alive at the start and see what happens with the third film then. But
mm,
it's a choice they made, and like you said, it's kind of I kind of appreciate what they went for, even though it's nowhere near as good as the first two.
yeah,
It's still it's still good to watch, and
mm,
even Resurrection, as much as I dislike it, it's one of those films that it feels like a product of its time, and it
mm,
was just clearly trying to be a bit like Aliens in a way, and it's just nowhere, just an all-out action film. It's nowhere near as good, but it's got its moments. It's still
yeah,
you watch an Alien film and you're like, oh yeah, xenomorph, face hugger,
mm,
there you go. Uh,
yeah.
Still delivers the thrills it needs to, but yeah, just not as good. But Romulus, high hopes, high
I,
hope
th-
for.
I think the other reason I'm excited for Romulus is because it looks like it's taking things back to basics. Because as much as I love Prometheus and Covenant, they should, especially Covenant, kind of suffers from this. Is like it should have been a nice, simple alien, killing people story, but then it tries to do stuff on top of that and make it a bit more like I don't know,
Yeah, yeah,
mythological and stuff on top of it. And I'm like, no, just stick to basics and you should be fine. And Alien Romulus looks like it's kind of doing that. Like I think Freddy said in an interview recently that like he's trying to take the best bits of Alien and Aliens and mashing it into one film, which I like the sound of. If you take the horror of the original and then like the group dynamic and action of the second, and then just smash them into one. If he's able to pull that off, which I mean
yeah.
he should be. He's a good director. So we are unfortunately now at the end of the episode. Now is the opportunity, Josh, for you to kind of just plug away, tell everyone where they can find you, not where you can find them. That's the wrong way around. So where can they find you on social media and online?
Yeah, so Barton Reviews is the website. It is my handle also on Twitter and TikTok, where I post my written reviews and my video reviews, which, yeah, I ramble on a bit, but that's where you can find me. Letterboxd is uh, Barton Reviews, I think. I can't remember.
Um,
I think it might be actually no. I think it's Josh 2410. Let me actually just search that now quickly. Sorry, while I
yeah, I think
yeah, my
it is.
letterbox is Josh 2410. Yeah, so follow me on there if you haven't, and look at my crappy reviews.
They're not crap. They're not crap. They're very good though.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, all of the links to Josh's socials will be in the description below with the right handles. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Check out all of Josh's reviews, especially his blog and the stuff he's done for Cinematique. And yeah, I will see you all in the next one. Bye.